Welcome to Brigadoon Radio. Brigadoon is the place where entrepreneurs and thought leaders discuss emerging issues shaping commerce and culture.
Hey everybody, this is Marc Ross. I'm joined today with John Meade. He is a design expert. He helps brands create a more valuable customer experience. He's also thinking a lot about, as we transition out of this COVID experience to more local experiences. He's coming to us from Vancouver, Canada, via London. So, John, thanks for joining us. How's it going?
I'm great, Mark. How are you doing? Good to meet you.
I'm doing great. This is, as you know, our first new format for Brigadoon Radio. So,
yeah,
I expect it to go swimmingly. No problems whatsoever. Hopefully, you'll have patience.
Let's keep the language clean, shall we? Nice, clean fight.
Exactly. Hopefully, your experience will be pleasurable. Anyways, so you have a very interesting background. You've worked with some of the biggest brands in the world, more kind of the bespoke, I'd say, luxury end, really helping them figure out when a customer engages the brand, almost from a physical retail experience, you help people kind of figure that out. You want to chat a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I think what's really interesting about that whole world, and I think it's kind of shifting quite a lot over the last year. I think we've seen a lot of brands looking to identify what in a more honest connection with customers, and I think customers are looking for that as well. I think the customers are more empowered these days. They have a lot of information on their hands to understand what the kind of products they're looking for, engage in the market in a broader capacity. There's a lot of information for people to really explore. So I think brands have to be very careful about what their story is and be honest in what they're trying to achieve for their customers. And I think customers are looking for that honesty and that kind of real shared experience and value to connect with the brand on a deeper level. I think with the way that the pandemic's kind of shifted our attention really in lots of ways away from just a more kind of like easy, casual and fleeting kind of consumer, something that's a bit deeper and sustainable. I think these elements of honesty and sustainability and environmental issues, climate change is obviously something that's really part of a lot of people's mindsets, and also the sense of the way brands connect in a sort of local environment now. We I think at the beginning of the pandemic last spring, we were seeing a lot of issues with like supplies coming into countries, and obviously people were reaching out for toilet paper galore, and there was no toilet paper. Oh my God! But if we're doing these things in a more local capacity and sharing stories in a local context, I think it's kind of shifted the way that the world's seeing the sort of globalism is becoming more localism, and that's a really powerful statement that everyone can be part of and not feel so separated from.
Here on Brigadoon Radio, we try to talk about like behind the scenes, like what really happens, and we have a lot of people that are obviously building their businesses or interested in branding and marketing. Where does a brand come from? Like, what's the genesis of that? This is a two-part question. And then how do you evolve that brand? That's got to be the innovator's dilemma, right? You have this great product and it's doing well, but you're competing with all these other forces. How do you help clients kind of sort that out or figure out what is a brand?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, we've been involved in actually brand creation. So a client comes to us with a vague idea about what they're looking to be, and we'll start creating with them around some particular ideas. But I think the best start for that is really like something kind of pretty unique about the story, about how they came into their business. So a cosmetics brand, for instance, there might be something quite unique about their sustainable climate, environmentally aware kind of product that comes from aloe plants, and there's something very specific in their story that's very unique. And I think that's what's kind of missed with a lot of brands as they kind of like grow. They kind of forget that there is something kind of really intrinsic in their individual value at a starting point. And I think it's really in some ways reconnecting a brand to that story. And I think the more you can do that, the better place they are. And I think a lot of, to answer another part of that question, the marketplace is crowded with brands, isn't it? We're all very much aware of that, and for instance, in the US, they're 24 square foot of retail space per capita of each person. In Canada, it's 16.8. In the UK, it's 4.5. So really, North America is pretty retail heavy. We don't need so much retail. There's a lot of it out there. We need better brands and better opportunities, better experiences. And I think the way that we're able to help is to navigate brands into the marketplace in a better way, so they're able to share their story in a more specific way to themselves that will give them more unique value in the marketplace and help engage their customers with their particular brand and that brand story. So the story is really, is fundamental to this question. We're in a design consultancy in Clerkenwell, like a good sort of 10, 12, 20, 15 years ago, and the MD of the business was really passionate about that. So everything starts with the brand. So what is that story? What's unique about that? And that's how we can really engage with the brand and to develop it into something that's obviously very unique for itself.
I do sense brand experts and marketers, they're always, ideally, they're thinking about the future, kind of where, retail is going, whatever experience you're trying to capture. Do you think in some ways, as horrible as COVID has been, here in the US, we're just going to crack about 500,000 deaths just today or this week. It's a pretty horrible situation, but do you think in some ways it's been a blessing to have almost this time out? Are you hearing from different executives that are let's really think about building better for the future, being more sustainable, providing higher value?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've got to look at crises like this and spin it to be a positive situation. And how do we come out of this designing for better? This is the whole. We look at big crises in the past, world wars. It's all something positive really comes out of these situations where there's a call to arms in that kind of sense. Second World War, we developed mass ways of increased production and skills in production, and those were long lasting into a whole load of different types of positive situations. And I think the pandemic will do the same. The whole conversation around locals become a really, really interesting and really vibrant discussion. And there's a lot of ways that's sort of really shifting and really bring a lot of attention to town centres, city centres, away from the bigger metropolises. But how do we, we've all had to work in a very much more of a local capacity from staying at home. Our workplaces are kind of are shut down. We have our own home offices or our dining tables with with our Zoom backgrounds, and we're all getting a bit tired of it. So I think it's kind of really, we're all eager to move on from it, but we've come to identify more with what's actually around our local experience. And I think there's a really great opportunity for individual entrepreneurs, business owners, and on a small scale and in a local scale to really make a mark and make a really interesting impact on the communities. And I think I think for years the sense of being local, working within the community was almost like almost like bad words, especially being a teenager growing up in a local town. You couldn't wait to leave to go to the big city, and I think that might shift. I'd be really interested to see how that works out over the next sort of 5 years or so. But I think there would be quite a shift in the way that works, and I don't think that there would be quite the same sort of brain drain away from local communities if we get it right. And I think that's really powerful. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that works, and also to be part of that journey as well with clients, because I think it's a really valuable world and a really valuable path. I don't think we need to have more brands and more retail. I think we need to have better brands and better retail. And if that means less of it, then there's more quality in those particular offers, and that's got to be a good thing for us as consumers and us as people as part of communities.
So you get the sense maybe fast fashion will be under threat, and there'll be more of a demand for craftsmanship going forward, whether it's a pair of jeans or a pair of boots or even the food we eat. You think there's gonna be a tendency to maybe value higher quality experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And I think there would be I think we would be we're more likely to take put our hands in our pockets a bit more and to spend a little bit more to make sure that we understand where that comes from. I mean, literally over last summer, me and my wife got involved in the local urban farm, and we were working with, giving ourselves some time there, a day a week, and helping in a community project. That meant that on the market stall, the goods were there's a little bit more premium price to it, but you knew it was just grown out there, like in that acre of ground, and people walk past during the week and just see people working and know that their food, their produce for that week was coming literally from there because it was being picked as they saw it. And I think that kind of sense of engaging in the journey and seeing that journey in front of them is really valuable. It means that they can see there's no GM products here. There's no one spraying it with any sort of weird pesticides. It's all just grown in the backyard, and they queue up and they buy the food that was grown last week. It's an amazing experience to be part of that, and to show that there's a real I think there's sort of the chain of demand from supply to purchase is going to really shift like that. And I think the more transparent that is, the better that is for everyone to be part of.
No, I love that. My sense too, just as a consumer, and just, I'm out here in Washington, D.C., but, traveling, I feel like some of the super cities like London, Vancouver, LA, New York, I mean, in some ways, they're sharing the same kind of DNA in terms of the same stores and same footprint. But I also get the sense that buildings are being asked to do more. That is, like, multiple uses in the space. There's also a bigger appreciation on mobility. It's not just for, driving. There's multiple ways to get to the storefront. Is that correct? I mean, is this like designed for multiple uses? Is it there, or is it becoming more of a trend?
That's really interesting.
Food hall or?
I think we could look at different models for that, from a high rise to a mall. I mean, there's a lot of I think what landlords will be looking at is to try and offset their risk in terms of what from having like a big single tenant in that respect. I think that's going to be really useful in lots of different ways. I think firstly from a mall perspective, you've had like I think in Minneapolis, Mall of America has had started to introduce healthcare into the mall. I think this is even a couple of years ago. It's a 2,300 square foot healthcare set up within the mall. UAE as well, I think recently are looking at a similar sort of context where the mall becomes multi-use in that way. So it's not specifically a retail destination. And I think this is one thing that's really developed out of the pandemic, is that if you really focus all attention on one specific element of tenant, then you're gonna have some issues. And as I was saying, we're not looking for like this huge kind of like significant growth in retail. We're looking almost to like pare it back in some ways and design for better and to have better experiences. And what we may see is that kind of shift into a deeper amount of tenants to make these experiences. So, like a high rise, an office space, building really constructed for offices may start to like shift. So those tenants may not be quite as workplace specific, but they may be. And we've seen this as well with like retailers taking up space in office blocks, but they become a multi-use. So it's an office space, but it's also a showroom, and it may be places where they have like for workshops around their brand. So it's I think the keywords are kind of like flexibility and repurpose. On the base floor of a high rise, it may be more like it's more of a hospitality space. So we're looking at, if we're going back into the workplace is not going to be purely about just people doing singular tasks in a space. It's going to be, because we can do that at home, and I think a lot of workers are looking at, a lot of staff are looking at the sort of the hybrid setup of work now. So probably a couple of days at home and 3 days in the workplace. And those 3 days in the workplace are going to be more about brand connection and collaborative experience. And then back home is more the task, singular task kind of setup. So the workplace will now have this kind of like really interesting shift into a slightly more kind of hospitality kind of world, where it's a way of really connecting with other workers, with other employees, and engaging more in discussion and innovation, really, because innovation really comes a lot from those kind of like those discussion conversations. And then that main floor of a town may sort of spill out onto the sidewalk, onto pavements, onto courtyards, and become more of a connection with the rest of the community around it. So I think there's some really interesting ways that we will shift these kind of more singular experiences into more multiple experiences.
No, that's very insightful. I love it. Yeah, in some ways, I remember. I mean, I haven't been in an office in a few. I've been working from home for a while. Never living this much and working at home, obviously this much. But you find you actually can do more work when you're by yourself sometimes, right? But you still need that collaborative experience. So I like the idea of, when I have a single task to do, maybe the home office is better, but collaboration, maybe I go into the city. And getting back to this idea around the local. So is your sense like more people, I mean, they'll still have these obviously kind of major metros, but maybe people will be moving 50, 60, 100 miles away. And then this idea of like the 15-minute city where I can kind of walk and do everything I need to do, whether it be shopping, visit my doctor, get some entertainment. Is that kind of where you're seeing like the world going in 10, 20 years? Yeah,
but I don't even think 10 and 20 years. I think next year.
Really? Yeah.
It's all fast track these days, isn't it? I think the pandemic's really shifted a lot of focus and understanding into really quick kind of turnaround. I mean, we've seen the rise of e-commerce over the last year has seen pretty much a 5-year hike in e-commerce within a year. So if we're looking at those kind of like those metrics, we are looking at sort of fundamental shifts in the way we do things in a really quick turnaround. Paris, for instance, is looking at a 15-minute city in current plans, and these are things that are going to be happening over the next few years. Sweden's looking at the 5-minute city. So really, people are looking at really, that's an interesting thing, isn't it? But really about sort of the fundamental nature of locality and what that's going to mean for town and city centres. And it's there's a lot of that is going to make a big difference in job markets. I think we've seen a lot of job markets leave the city centre and look to connect with facilities outside of centres, because it's the real estate is kind of cheaper. There's more incentives for business and local governments in setting up business parks and those kind of elements, which really taking away the idea of people working in a more of a city context or in a more of a local context where they can really connect with customers and where they live and where they work and play. So I think we're looking at a sort of the whole nature of the 15-minute city is to really look at where our hubs will be, and that pretty much gives us a point to work with and to socialize around and to work around within a much more local context, which is more meaningful. So we're not creating these like huge commutes in and out of work, and bypassing a lot of stuff, spending a lot of time doing it, and we just want to be why can't we work? Why can't we walk to work and have that sort of 15-minute piece where we go to our co-work space or our brand office, we shop, we eat and we drink within that kind of area, and then certainly city centres and traveling a bit further out for different experiences is certainly going to be a key part of that. But I think all these conversations are really based around that sense of what local will mean in the future and its near future. I mean, these are the discussions that are happening at the moment, and people are really taking it on board. I think also recently in the UK, there's been a move into people really looking at sort of local hubs and working, as we were saying earlier, about the repurposing of space. we've had a lot of major retailers that have declared bankruptcy, gone bust, and given up real estate. And this is a global phenomenon. I'm sure the US is really, really aware of it as well. So we're ending with these massive footplates of potentially empty space. And how do you work with like a major anchor that's suddenly left the mall and left with like 50,000 square feet? In more local contexts in UK, what's been happening is that people have been developing these larger footprints into more community hubs of hospitality, so it's an entertainment. So we're seeing a value of sort of really locally driven establishments where local entrepreneurs and business can be part of something that's pretty experiential. So it's like food and drink led, with cinema, with gyms and co-work spaces. So you end up with these kind of really interesting situations out of what potentially could have been a very negative experience, and it's really going to fill a gap, physically and metaphorically within our local communities.
Before we go, just one final question. Obviously, I think design is becoming more and more important, even for some of the most, low-key industries, accounting and attorneys and whatnot. And design is like front and center. What are some good sources for folks if they want to dig deeper in this topic, whether it be magazines, books, blogs, or or leaders out there, thought leaders that are doing some good stuff in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think there's a few really good online magazines. I mean, Design is exceptional. I'm sure you come across it as well. There are a lot of really interesting articles and experiences and knowledge around a lot of different issues. And it was quite a go-to for me. I mean, probably seen on my LinkedIn, there's probably like at least a post a week from Design. There's a Frame magazine as well, is a really useful one. We both have our colleagues at the Future Collective, and they've got some really great content and thought pieces on their website. So I definitely look at them for some really great guidance and understanding of the marketplace as well, because there's some really honest connection with brands, and also how we're seeing the future lie as well. So those are really interesting elements. But certainly even like sort of local community pages and local council websites are also being really valuable to see what people are looking at. I think there's a lot of information that's been available, and a lot of reports that are coming out from more independent consultancies that are really engaging in local community-based, community-driven ideas. Those are really interesting as well. But certainly from a local context, there's definitely some really interesting work out there from just local guys setting up things and looking at being entrepreneurial and seeing how their local businesses and local communities can really help drive like a deeper experience for everyone within that community sector.
Love it. You're a champ. I appreciate you doing this. As you know, was the first one, so you're a true hero.
Did we get
Hopefully
10 out
we'll
of
be
10
able to. I think so. I mean, I don't know. For me, it was good. Hopefully, it was okay for you. But we'll do it. We can always do it again in a few months' time. I love the idea of a 5-minute city. I was thinking about. Wow, that's pretty quick.
Yeah,
like the bakery shop is above your house. I love it.
Yeah, it'd be you sitting next, having your espresso and your Danish, and then you're working in the same place as well. But that's a sort of Swedish thing. It's kind of interesting, and I think maybe hopefully they're not just trying to have a score against Paris to see how quick they can make that city.
Right, it's a race to the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, John, if people want to connect with you and follow you, or where should they track you down?
Yeah, go check me out on LinkedIn, and that's always a good place to start. I'm open for discussion, and if anyone wants to message me directly on LinkedIn, then please do. Quite happy to have a chat, and we can let's spread some information and talk about collaboration into the future. I think it's always really, I think that's what we kind of miss in some ways, being like a sort of quite remote in terms of our working, but even having these kind of conversations are absolutely fantastic to share information, knowledge, and these are all conversations. It's discourse, and that's the way that we grow and develop ideas.
Well, John, you're here for doing this, man. We will talk to you soon.
Yeah, loved it, Mark. It's been great fun, and even it'd be interesting to see where we are in a few months, and towards the end of the year, and we can catch up again and see if all our predictions were kind of true or how badly we missed it.
I love it. Hopefully, Trudeau will let us Americans back into Canada. We'll see. I don't know. I don't think Canada's happy not having Americans run all over the place. So.
Yeah, so there's been a lot said about Trudeau needs to get away from his home office and get back into the House of Commons to be.
There you go. You're funny. That is that's another podcast we could talk about. Can you run a country from your home office? But
yeah, indeed, it's your own personal bunker, isn't it? So, I think I think we've seen other governments keep moving and keep progressing within obviously UK government is setting up in the House of Commons, albeit like a lot more fragmented and distant. Biden's quite happily working away in Washington. So, yeah, it can definitely happen.
Thanks for listening to Brigadoon Radio. Brigadoon is where entrepreneurs and thought leaders gather. For more information, please visit thebrigadoon.com.